Okay, so you've heard the terms calligraphy, modern calligraphy, brush calligraphy, hand lettering, brush lettering, fonts, typography, all the things, and so many more. And you kind of have an understanding of what they mean, but you might also confuse them all. Or maybe you don't have an understanding of what any of them mean at all, and you have no idea how to differentiate these things. Hey, I'm Becca with the Happy Ever Crafter, and in this video, I'm gonna break it down for you and show you the difference. First of all, what makes this even more confusing is that it depends who you're talking to. And even before I jump in, I'm gonna put a disclaimer here that these are my definitions and my understandings. And if you disagree, that's totally okay. I'm not here to get into the history of each thing or dispute where they came from. I'm just here to simplify the meaning so that beginners can differentiate. So first, let's start with the big question. What's the difference between calligraphy, hand lettering, and fonts? These are the ones that get confused the most. And once you understand this difference, you can apply it to understanding most of the other confusing parts. So when we talk about calligraphy, first of all, calligraphy is literally defined as beautiful writing. So calligraphy is the art of writing letters. You'll see this characterized by those thicks and the thins that you see in calligraphy, so thick downstrokes and thin upstrokes. And those are achieved by using special tools, so pressured tools like a brush, or maybe a pointed pen, or a broad-edged nib. To me, calligraphy is also characterized by strokes. So see how each of these letters is broken into little pieces? It's not like writing in one fluid motion like cursive. Strokes are a big differentiator and a big important piece of calligraphy. Within calligraphy, you'll also hear the terms modern calligraphy, traditional calligraphy, pointed pen calligraphy, copperplate calligraphy, black letter calligraphy, all sorts of others. They can look super different from each other. So for example, this is modern calligraphy that I did, and this is black letter calligraphy done by my friend Tamer of Black Letter Foundry. So all of those terms I listed refer to the style of calligraphy being done. They can look totally different, but they're all under the umbrella of calligraphy. Now let's talk about hand lettering. So hand lettering is drawing letters as opposed to writing letters. You can do hand lettering with any tools. They don't have to be specialized like calligraphy. Just like calligraphy, there are infinite styles of hand lettering, and it can be so many different things. But as you see here, what I'm doing is drawing the letter. I'm not writing the letter, and I'm not writing strokes. I'm drawing it and filling it in with my super basic pen. Now the third thing we wanted to talk about, fonts. So fonts are digital. You'll also hear the word typography, and if you think about that, typography. So it's like typing from a keyboard. There's a lot more you can get into when it comes to fonts and typography and the difference between even those two. But for the purposes of this video, let's just differentiate fonts and typography from hand lettering and calligraphy by saying that hand lettering and calligraphy are done by hand, and typography and fonts are digital characters. It's literally what comes out of a keyboard. This often comes up with clients, for example, who will come to me and say like, oh, can you show me the font that you're gonna use for my wedding sign? And I'm like, I don't use fonts. Fonts are digital. I use hand lettering and make it by hand. So I can show them what my style of hand lettering is, but I can never promise that it's gonna look like a font because fonts are digital and they're perfected. So as a little recap of those three, calligraphy is writing letters with specialized tools broken down into strokes. Hand lettering is drawing letters using any tools you want. And fonts are digital, consistent characters that come out of a keyboard, not out of a hand. But now for the trickier, more confusing questions then. First of all, what about faux calligraphy? Wouldn't that technically be hand lettering since you're drawing the letters? Why is it called calligraphy? To me, faux calligraphy could really be called either. It could be lettering or calligraphy, honestly. You're using hand lettering to create the look of calligraphy. So personally, I call this faux calligraphy since the goal is that it looks like calligraphy, and I'm using strokes to create it. But you'll definitely see other people call this hand lettering since it involves drawing letters and filling them in. So in this instance, there's really no right or wrong. Okay, and the last confusing one is the difference between brush lettering and brush calligraphy. People totally use these interchangeably, and this is one of the trickiest things to kind of wrap your mind around. Honestly, you're not gonna get in trouble for ever saying one or the other. Nobody's gonna come at you and say, actually, that's not brush lettering, that's brush calligraphy. Unless, of course, you're putting yourself on YouTube to explain the difference, and someone very well could come into the comments and correct me right now, but that's a different story. In your day-to-day, no one's gonna come and get mad at you for saying one or the other. In general, it's totally okay to use either or, but if I personally had to separate them, here's the way I see it. I call this brush calligraphy, because I'm using a brush to create it, and it's broken into the calligraphy basic strokes with the thicks and the thins. I call this brush lettering because I'm using a brush to create it, but it's not calligraphy strokes. It's just drawing fun letter styles. This could just be called calligraphy, and this could just be called hand lettering. You could just take the brush out of it. Again, so much of all of this can be debated. Specialists from each area will chime in with different definitions of different words, and depending who you speak to, they may well have a totally different interpretation than the person beside them. But to me, honestly, none of it is life or death. Whether you call your calligraphy calligraphy or hand lettering, as long as you're creating pretty letters and you're having fun doing it, I'm happy for you. If all of this is new to you and you've never learned any of these skills at all before, next up I'm going to link you to a video that I think you're going to have fun with, and I hope this was helpful. I'll see you over there.